I'm Chris, owner of Swamp Rabbit Moving and Storage. We're a locally owned moving company.
And they come in, and he's assembling furniture, and he's moving boxes, and he's driving his truck, and he's got he's made like 700 trips.
We even partner with a professional organizer. We've brought her in on bigger jobs to where she can actually professionally organize and optimize functionality. Don't get frustrated. Take a step back, breathe, think through, because if it got in there, it can definitely get out.
Right.
You just got to take your time and think through it.
We're about to start this journey. On the front end, what's some tips and advice you could give them?
Yeah, I would say, some tips and advice. Number one,
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Barndo Show. I'm pumped, man. Today I got one of my best friends in here hanging out with us, and we're talking about something awesome, which is move-in day, which is what everybody's looking forward to when they sign up for a Barndo, and everybody's gassed up, ready, and by the time you get done running the race of building your home, you're like, this is the greatest day in our life, and then you got to start moving your stuff, man.
boom.
And then it goes right back to misery, like having to get all that stuff unpacked, man. But tell everybody who you are and what you do, bro.
What's up, guys? I appreciate you having me on here, man. Like you said, anytime you ask me to do anything, I'll jump on board just because I love you. And, that's how our relationship is. I'm Chris, owner of Swamp Rabbit Moving and Storage. We're a locally owned moving company that has been around for almost 4 years. When it comes to moving, really anything we can handle.
Yeah, man. What's cool is like you started a few months prior to us starting, but we kind of have grew up in the trenches together of like ownership and growth and all this kind of stuff, and been in so many environments together of like, it's just been cool, man. It's like, those motivational things, like where you do something cool and it just like beats me in my soul where I'm like, damn, Chris is killing it. Like I gotta, it's good. It's fun.
No, absolutely.
And like I tell anybody in the world, man, if you're starting a business, I don't care what it is, find other dudes like that.
Absolutely.
Because there's certain circles you can't share those wins, and you can't share the struggles either.
Yeah.
And so having some camaraderie with people that live that life you live is like, you can't equate it to anything. It's like it is your lifeline. Because there's days where you feel like you're the king of the world, and other people would look at you like cocky, bragging, whatever. And
Oh, yeah.
And we're just looking at it like, what a victory, because we know the challenges,
Absolutely.
And then the days you want to quit, you got somebody around you that understands that too, and is like, hey, it'll be fine, man. Just get there tomorrow.
100%. It's so like, it sounds so cliche when you hear it, but it really is difficult as a business owner to have friends that aren't in the business world, right? Or don't have that, entrepreneur mindset, because like you said, who do you share the losses and wins with? Because, your regular friends that you used to hang out with, it's either bragging or it's always complaining again, but they don't get the struggle of what it takes to get to where you're at. It's like Facebook, it's a highlight reel, right? You only see good things, but there's a lot of bad things that happen in order for that good thing to happen.
That's right, man. And having good friends to keep you sharp and remind you why you're doing it. That's invaluable. So
absolutely,
there's your business tidbit. But I want to lean in and talk about the kind of the highlight day for our clients.
Yeah.
Swamp Rabbit's right here in the upstate of South Carolina with us, but you service all over the freaking map. Like I follow you guys' Instagram page, and y'all got rabbits everywhere, man. Like, every day they posting some kind of move where y'all move people from here to Montana, and you pick somebody up in Denver and brought them back to Greenville, and it's just wild, man.
Yeah, we're all over the map. It's funny you said that. My GM, actually, I think yesterday or the day before, was like, Chris, we're only going to have 2 trucks for local moves next week. I was like, how?
And you got 700 of them. So.
Yeah. No, we got 17, but we got Indiana, Chicago, New York, New Jersey, Florida, Texas, and those are all just really next week. So we service all lower 48 states. Typically during our peak season, though, we really try to stay Texas over, just because from a business standpoint, it's the most profitable for us. Right. But, during our slower times, we'll open up our reach and, go California or Washington or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, It's awesome. It's
Yeah.
just awesome to see that happen. But something else you do that really adds some convenience, and we'll dive into it a little deeper. But like also you have that storage aspect of, you know, being able to crate people's belongings. And so like if they're selling their home and they're building a new home, and there's going to be this like 9 to 18 month window there where maybe they don't need all of their things, that you can service that as well by putting their things in storage, right?
Yeah, so we started storage maybe a little bit over a year ago, and I really started storage because I was seeing a pain point where, you know, you would go move these clients out of these storage units, and they were talking about how somebody broke in and stole something, or, you know, you go into it, nothing was blanketed, so they'd have like dresser scratch and stuff. And I saw, you know, it's not new what we're doing, but I saw a opportunity for us to be able to provide storage where the blankets are already provided, where we're the only ones with access to a location, and also the convenience of a customer just having kind of a one-stop shop.
Yep.
You know, especially during COVID days, we saw a lot of houses sell and they didn't have a house to buy right yet, you know? So they had a 6-month lag period where they were in a furnished apartment or a Airbnb or whatever the case may be. And I knew that would be a good opportunity for us to come pick up their stuff and hold it until they were ready to get their belongings back.
So like walk us through this a minute. So like, you know, you put yourself in the mindset of you're a Barndo client, right?
Yeah.
Or just someone building a home. And so they're moving from where they were. They're probably in temporary. A lot of our clients actually live in like campers because they bought this awesome piece of land, and that's their temporary housing while we're building. And so if they're in a camper, no way are they putting all their furniture from their home in there. So walk through that, like, what should they be thinking about right now? And we'll start with like, hey, we're preparing to build, right? We're interviewing builders. We're about to start this journey. You know, on the front end, what's some tips and advice you could give them?
Yeah, I would say, you know, some tips and advice. Number one, congratulations, because you're about to have the best home in the upstate because you went with the Barndo Co. Little plug there. The first thing I would do really is, are you in a house yet? Are you in a house right now and you're moving to your camper?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So what I would do is I would start packing about an hour a day. Pick out what you don't need to take to your camper with you. Pack it for an hour a day. That way you don't get overwhelmed, stressed out. Start labeling stuff, storage, camper, whatever the case may be, where you're going to take it. And then, you know, figure out where you're going to store your belongings. Are you going to rent a self-storage, or are you going to have a moving company come pick it up and store it? But really taking little baby steps way in advance is going to make your life so much easier and a lot less stressful.
Yeah, man, because if you've ever been in the situation of moving, it's not fun. You know, and typically what happens is, you know, life's happening, and then this deadline date's fast approaching.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself the night before the move running around, and you're shoving things here and there, throwing stuff in the trash, and everybody's mad at each other, and it's you have way more stuff than you think you do.
100%. And that's where mistakes happen too. You know, that's where stuff doesn't get properly packed and stuff starts breaking, you know, so it's just good to plan ahead.
Yeah, man. And then, you know, I guess kind of beyond that, like when you come in and you really understand the journey of building a new home, and we'll kind of land there because that's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
There are some perceived timelines to that, you know, and so you come in on the front end, they're working with us to design and stuff, and a lot of times people are still in their homes at this point in time, and they're kind of going through that design, and then when we send that out to financing, it not always is the case, but very often is, hey, we got to sell our home, which is one of the final pieces to get this loan closed on the new home, because all their equity's in their home typically.
Yeah.
And so at like kind of when they've got their proposal back and they've signed that and it's sent off to finance, you know, you kind of got like this 45-day window while they're doing underwriting and reviews and stuff. And a lot of times that's kind of like when reality sets in that, hey, we're moving from the old into the new, and that step. And so having some strategy behind that of like, hey, go ahead and start packing up the things that are in all the drawers in the house that you don't touch.
You haven't seen in a year.
Yeah.
Or throw them away, whichever one.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I saw this clip the other day, and it was hilarious to me. It says, here's a moving tip. If this item had been dropped in cow manure, would you wash it off to keep it? If not, throw it away. and like, I remember doing a cross-country move. Me and my family moved in 2015 to Salt Lake City, Utah from the upstate of South Carolina.
Yeah.
And we didn't think we had much. we were like, we're minimalists, man. We don't have that much stuff. And we kind of had like a in-between move before, like we moved out of the home we were in into a rental home here in the upstate, and we had an 18-wheeler full of stuff.
Holy smokes.
And then when we moved from there to Salt Lake City, we were like, all right, if it can't fit in this U-Haul trailer, it ain't going.
Yeah.
And so when we got out there, we kind of like bought a bunch of new stuff. The big furniture, we bought all new furniture and stuff like that. But we had so much like sentimental stuff and clothing that we literally had 2 trailers full when we made the journey out there. And when we got there, and then we like kind of started rebuilding again. And some people have done this recently, you know, moving in their first home. They bought all this furniture. They got all this stuff. When we moved back, so we were in Salt Lake for like 3 years.
Yeah.
When we moved back, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this by myself. And I just called a moving company and was like, I need y'all to pack everything. I need y'all to transport everything. Yeah. And it was an 18-wheeler full of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it was astronomically expensive because I did packing and unpacking. I did the whole nine.
Oh, yeah.
But it was the best thing I ever did in my life because there was no stress.
Absolutely.
There's no stress.
You don't realize how much less stress it is when you just let a company handle the whole thing. Yes, it costs money and you have to be able to afford it. But on the same token, if you are in that position, I mean, it's just the way to go. I own a moving company. I'll never move myself again. I can tell you that.
Heck no. Heck no. So, all right. So you're kind of going through this cadence. You know, it's good advice on the pack up side of things. Like, hey, you know, we're transitioning from this way of life to this way of life temporarily, and then we're going to moving into our dream. Okay, so now you've been in that process. You're in your temporary housing, and you kind of get, you know, for us, they can kind of see the schedule, right? They get an idea of what that move-in date is. It's not guaranteed, and it moves around depending on different things, you know, weather delays or production delays or back-ordered items or sometimes homeowner delays because they got some things that they've got to, you know, put in place and they can't do them, you know, as fast as we anticipated. So, but that schedule's always, it's a living thing, and it's just constantly setting that date. And so you get real close within a couple of weeks of what your move-in date's going to be. And we've got really good at that. In the beginning, you know, it was like throwing horseshoes. We were hoping.
Yeah, just praying.
But, you know, hundreds of homes later, we've got it down pretty much to a science to where we can give you kind of a 30-day bubble from the day one of when you're going to be moving in that home. And then as we get closer to construction, we can narrow it down to like a 2-week timeline. And some of that's based off like doing the blue tape walkthroughs and doing the final touch-ups and all that stuff, and, you know, getting the final payments from the lenders and closing up all the documents so we can deliver that home to the homeowner. But with a, like, kind of knowing that 2-week window, how far in advance before they should be trying to reach out to a moving company for the final move in?
For the final move in, I would typically say about 30 days.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we're in the moving world, and we see it honestly every day, is that, you know, not all closings close on the day they're supposed to, right? Something happens, like you said, and we just need to push back. And when you're on our schedule, you know, you're top priority to us, right? Like, so if something happens with your closing date or whatever, we're going to bend over backwards. You know, it may not always be the case, but we're going to give it our all to try and make sure that we're able to accommodate any shift or move you have in your closing date.
Yep. Well, and here's the thing is, like, it's such a big piece. And when people get into building, they're not thinking about this.
Yeah, no, it's the last thing.
No, they're thinking about, I do not want to wake up and try to get dressed in my camper.
Yeah.
You know, or this small apartment that I've got in, or, you know, there's so much other outside pressure that this gets overlooked often.
Absolutely.
And so, and then, you know, a lot of times we have people moving in, and like you see, like we're there in that final day, CO's been issued, we're doing punch out, and like you got all the furniture companies showing up and dropping off the new sofa in the garage and things like that. So like that, people are thinking that way.
Yeah.
But the overall moving experience. So here's what I'd like to do is like a bullet point of like, the value of hiring Swamp Rabbit to come in and make that move-in day spectacular versus a DIY, and give them some points. Like, hey, look, you're 30 days out from your potential move-in date. What's some DIY things? Like if you had like 3 to 5 highlight items like to think about, like you're going to do this yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to set you up for success to do it that way. And then talk about the perceived value of like, hey, if you'd hired us to do it, here's what that move-in day could have looked like, kind of thing.
Yeah. So we'll take a crack at the DIY. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what size truck you're going to need, right? Like that's a huge component. Make sure you get an appropriate size truck that you can rent from U-Haul or Penske. We typically, back when we haven't rented a truck in a long time, but back when we rented trucks, we found budget to be the best deal. So I would always probably look into them. Also, another big thing you need to think about is how are you going to protect your furniture, right? You're going to have friends that aren't experienced movers moving your stuff. You want to make sure that it's at least blanketed to protect the walls, the furniture itself. And then you're going to have to line up some labor and make sure that they are accountable and that they're going to be there to help you out on the smooth process. After that, I mean, it just typically comes to like the basic, safety stuff. Make sure if it's raining that you watch out for metal ramps so you don't slip and fall with a piece of furniture. Make sure that you're lifting appropriately. And then just master your craft at Tetris. I think a good prep tool, just download Tetris and play for a week and see what you got.
Pro tip.
Whoever gets the highest scores packing the truck. But then if you use Swamp Rabbit Moving, essentially after the first phone call and initial on-site estimate or virtual estimate, you can really just sit there and forget about it, right? Like, we tell you what it's going to be, the price, and then after that, we handle all the logistics on the back end. We come with a branded truck, so it's us, employees that are wearing our T-shirt, so that they're W-2 employees that we've trained extensively in the moving process. In our warehouse, we have a one-bedroom mock apartment, so we don't ever send anybody out that's not equipped or able to handle your move. We come with all blankets, shrink wrap, tape. If you choose packing, we come with all the packing materials needed. And, you just sit back, tell us where you want things at the end. Or, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll build an actual, just like a little floor plan of where they want stuff. We'll label it in the first house with a piece of tape, what room it came from. And then essentially on the unload, that makes it so much easier because now we're not having to ask you where it goes.
Right.
And we can just put it right where it goes. And then, you lay in your bed that night. After what would have took you probably 2 weeks to move, it took us 6 hours. You get to lay in your bed and watch TV that night and enjoy your new home.
That's right. You get to instantly step into what you've been waiting for.
Absolutely.
So I think here's something that I didn't fully understand until I sat down with a moving company on that big cross country move.
Yeah.
The levels of service.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's like, I'll move it myself.
Yeah.
I have one client in particular. And he built a monstrosity of a barn, and he lived in a pretty nice size house prior to, but in the interim, he lived in this small 1-bedroom, 700 square foot house. Like it was like a rental property he owned, I think, and he was like, we're just moving in there. And then he was like, I had to build a freaking shed to put stuff in because I didn't think through this. And he was like, I'm not paying that money for a moving company.
Yeah.
And then on move-in day, and he bought a bunch of new furniture and stuff. So, like, a lot of the big pieces were new. And they come in, and he's assembling furniture, and he's moving boxes, and he's driving his truck, and he's got his, 5x8 utility trailer, and he's made, 700 trips, and his sons are out there, and everybody's going in and out. And, they got mud on their feet, and they're walking through the new house. And he's like, and I remember going there for a birthday party that he had a couple weeks after he moved in, and he said, I'll tell you one thing that I'd do different if I ever did this again. There ain't no way I'd move myself.
Yeah.
So I think everybody knows DIY, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody, I think, goes into the idea of I can do that myself.
Yeah.
So we know that that's the floor. Mm-hmm. What's the top end of that look like? What's a Swamp Rabbit white glove service? What does that include? Hey, I'm calling you. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
What would that include?
Yeah, so that would include us coming and packing up all your stuff. Once we pack up all your stuff, the next day we'll come and pick it all up, move it to your new house, and then the final third day, depending on the size of your move, obviously, right? This is just a standard house. Bigger houses require more days. But then the final day, we would just come in and unpack everything as well and put it back in your cupboard. We even partner with a professional organizer. We've brought her in on bigger jobs to where she can actually professionally organize and optimize functionality of the space and put it where it needs to go.
Which is an incredible service that I don't think people realize is available.
Absolutely.
So, especially if you're going from hey, this is how we had it laid out in the kitchen we've been in for 15 years, but I'm moving in this new kitchen. Yeah. The thought process, I remember my wife unpacking boxes because I didn't get white glove, but I did get it moved, and the boxes dropped in the rooms they're supposed to go in.
Black glove.
And yeah, I got the black glove service. But I remember my wife unpacking the kitchen.
Yeah.
And being so overwhelmed. And I remember one thing was the little silverware sorter.
Yeah.
Didn't fit in the new drawer.
Oh no.
Like it fit in the old drawer.
Yeah.
And like now she's on Amazon. Like I got to find this thing, do this and that and this and the other. Like it's just all these things that you're not thinking about. And then we did the same thing. We ended up hiring a professional organizer to come in, and she looked at our kitchen. She was like, oh yeah, you just do this, and like, it costs us $1,500 or something for her to come hang out.
Well worth it.
And everything's functional.
Absolutely.
And to be able to like plan that ahead, like if you're coming into this and you got the budget right, that is a service that's available that'll make your experience phenomenal. Like if you want to have the absolute best service, you need to look into this, because the difference and talk about price level. So basically, white glove is we pack everything, which means, hey, we're showing up with all the packaging, the boxes, the everything. So like, you
don't have to go to Lowe's. You don't have to find friends with empty boxes.
That's right. And you got like wardrobe boxes.
Yes.
So like things that are on hangers get hung on a little bar in the box. Everything stays there. You're not wadding it up and smushing it in trash bags.
Comes out all wrinkled.
Yeah.
And stuff,
literally you could take your closet, and these guys could come in, wardrobe boxes, pack that thing up, make the move happen, and then it's hung back up in your closet in the exact same condition it was before it left. And I just don't think a lot of people understand that like it's that caliber of a difference, And can you go buy wardrobe boxes? Sure you can.
Absolutely.
They're expensive.
Yeah.
And I think by the time you get done with it, you'll look at it and say, well, really, the only cost difference here was like the convenience factor. And, but white glove is, hey, we're going to pack it all up for you. We're going to move it, even store it if we have to.
Yeah.
Get it there on move-in day. We're going to unpack everything in those rooms. We're going to put things back where they go. Yeah. And there might be 20% where we're asking you, like, hey, what do you want to do with this? Or maybe you leave it on the surface of the counters in the kitchen or something. But, like, 80% turnkey perfection done.
Absolutely.
And then you could take it 100% by bringing in this organizer or something like that. Like, there's that caliber. And then the step below that would be, hey, we can come in and pack everything, move everything, drop boxes off in the rooms and be done.
Yep.
And then I think a tier down from that would be like you pack it, we move it. And it's like what's kind of a cost element. And let's talking like percentages, right? Because every job's different, right? Yeah. And there's no way to be like, it costs this much money. Yeah. Because it's not like you're buying an item. Yep. You're buying a service, and the service is indicative of your particular situation.
Absolutely.
What do you think percentage-wise from call us to come pick boxes up, move them, throw them out in the new house versus having you guys do the packing and unpacking?
Yeah. So generally, if we do the packing and unpacking, you're probably looking at double the cost of what it costs to move.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So the biggest, I guess the biggest question would be then if you're listening to this as a homeowner or someone who's about to enter this journey, or maybe you're in it right now and your moving date's coming up, is what's my time worth? Yeah,
what's my time? What is a month or 2 months with my family? What's that time worth? Versus us being able to come in and do it in a day. Essentially, it's a skilled trade. A lot of people don't think moving is a skilled trade, but it is. It takes a lot of training to get.
Well, I can speak as a follower, of y'all's socials, even like. Y'all do training events all the time. Like you posted one, I think last week, and you were like, it was an early morning thing. You're like, getting dude, there's like 100 dudes in there. Yeah. It's just like the attention to detail to it. And then like you post a bunch of good videos. If you guys aren't following, how do they follow you on social media?
Yeah. At Swamp Rabbit Moving, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah. You put out a ton of content, like the differences of like, hey, here's the Swamp Rabbit difference, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like how you wrap things, and like you post pictures of like this is what the standard is here
for sure.
And if you've never been in that environment, it might not make sense to you, but when you see the level of detail that goes into it, you're 100% skill.
Absolutely. And another thing we train on really heavy too, and I think it kind of gives us that competitive edge, is communication, right? Like training these guys how to properly talk to a customer, or train them how to handle difficult situations with another employee. Like that's something that I don't feel like it's touched a lot in our industry, and that's what makes us, I think, so successful in the area is our level of customer service.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want proof of that, go look at their Google reviews.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys set the standard in business of reviews with clients. And if you go look at their reviews, 90% of them are pictures of the family with the dudes that moved them in.
Yeah.
And they're like, these dudes were amazing.
They're like family by the end of the move.
Yeah. So it's really cool to see because even, I mean, I hired a big commercial, moving
van
company.
line.
And I didn't have that experience, right?
Yeah.
Like they did a good job.
Yeah,
right? They got it from A to B,
Yep.
but I didn't have that. Like I didn't know who it was, and I didn't have there was no moment where I was like, this is worthy of high fives and hugs on the front porch. You know, you got clients that are like buying these dudes steak dinners, and they're so thankful. And if you've ever moved, you understand where that comes from because it is absolutely frustrating. The moving, I think, is physically demanding, but most people can handle that.
Yeah.
The mental exhaustion of the Tetris.
Yep.
Fitting this all together and getting it all in the new place, and if you've ever moved and, you go to people's houses, you look in their garage and there's like 40 boxes in there that are like taped up in the corner. And you're like, what is all that? They're like, oh, that's from where we moved 4 years ago. We just hadn't got around to it yet. I got some. I got like 7 boxes stuffed up in an attic area. And my wife's like, I need to get those pictures. And I'm
we
like,
do too.
Yeah. It's like, nah, they're good.
Yeah,
they're good. They're tucked away safe.
They're going to die right there, baby.
But that's awesome, man. I guess from your perspective, like, again, to a client, anything that you could give them in terms of like, hey, we're sitting down and we're thinking about this, or maybe they've shopped this around and they kind of got sticker shock, on the cost of moving and stuff like that. What would be advice you would give them in terms of processing, like, and we've touched on it a little bit, but like in terms of processing, like, should we pull the trigger or should we not pull the trigger? Like, close them. Like, what is your perspective of like, how does your team and you're sitting with the client, how do you deliver enough value to where they get it, where you see the light come on and you see the connection made to where they're like, yes, because everybody's going to wrestle with the decision to do it, right? It's just like anything else. Like, we have to eat food. We have to put fuel in our car if we're going to drive it. But some of this seems like maybe it's an extra, you know what I mean? But like, what are some of the highlight values that you hit on when you're talking to clients?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. And there is cost associated to it, right? So that's that's the first thing you got to establish. Can you handle the cost? But the next thing I would say is, how do you want to go into the building your dream home? Like, that's your dream. Like, you've thought about this, you've went through the long process. Do you want to go into it stressed out, or you're trying to ease into it and be able to enjoy it, right? Like, do you want to be able to enjoy your new home? Why take on that risk of, somebody getting hurt on your property, or, something getting damaged, or, any of these cases, God forbid, you like wind up in the hospital. What's it worth to you to be able to enjoy your new dream home? Essentially that's what it comes down to. And the way we close them, we're not really hard closers. Like, that's the thing about us is like, we're not here like Swamp Rabbit's the only way and like this and that, all this bull crap. There's a lot of good moving companies in the area. Yep. There is, it all correlates back to who do you relate with the most? Who do you trust the most in your home?
Correct.
We'll lay out the process. It's been a while since I saw, but we'll lay out the process of what it looks like. We show up to your front door when we say we're going to show up. Everybody comes together as a team. We have house prep in hand. As far as house prep, I mean floor runners, stuff to cover the banisters. When you have a tight 90-degree turn on the drywall, we'll tape some cardboard there, make sure that's safe. And you get that sense of feeling that when we show up to the door, we're ready to work and we're professional and we know what we're doing, right? Because that's the first critical moments is when you show up. That's when they're, still iffy about the moving company because they've heard perceived, misconceptions about moving companies. Like they show up, they smoke cigarettes and whatever. But they see you show up well dressed in a clean manner and ready to work in a professional manner, And then after that, we're going to walk through. We're going to make note of any damage really quickly, not on your time. And then we're going to start blanket and shrink wrap anything that's wood, metal, glass, etc. And then we're going to start loading the truck appropriately. And when we get to your new house, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to set up home protection on your house, and we're going to move everything exactly where you want it. If you want to shift it around 2 or 3 times, that's okay. Like, we're here to help you. We're here to be a service of you.
Well, it was a loaded question for me because here's what I knew it was going to be. We don't pressure.
Yeah.
And that's why you're here, because we're the same. Yeah. Like, we built our whole company around this idea of onboarding. And it was in the beginning, it was really a difficult thing because people were like, what do you mean you charge money to start the process? That's not a deposit and it's non-refundable. And like, even to this day, people hear that and like, there'll be a comment on Facebook. What do you mean non-refundable, not towards the thing? And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand what this is.
Yeah.
This is a way for us to give you full service to explore, because building a home is a big deal.
Absolutely.
And, honestly, if you're not ready to park $5,000 to $7,000 into this process, you're not ready to build.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about spending $500,000 or more, or at least. I think our average build price right now is like $428,000.
Yeah.
Like if you're not comfortable exchanging $5,000, then you don't have trust. And the reason you're sitting here is because you don't know how to establish it.
Yep.
So we take this first step with everybody and we walk them through the entire process. And it's frustrating. And and we're monitoring all that. Like, if someone is so overwhelmed and frustrated with communicating with designers and getting scheduled to come in and pick selections and all this kind of stuff, like, we're ranking people. Like, how is this going to go with them in the field?
Yeah.
And we've 100% got to the end and been like, I don't like as much as you're so frustrated, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Because it helps us identify like who we don't want to build with, because, there is an element of trust. We have to feel like we're on the same team from day one. And if it's combatant and just riddled with, every nuance is just like, we don't want to do business together, because obviously we're not right. And that's the power of choose us, don't just use us.
Absolutely.
And again, that feedback helps us get better, because we process all of it. Some of it is, we dodged a bullet with that client. Some of it is, hey, we dropped the ball here. How can we improve this process so that like that mindset of someone, or that their thought process is different than mine in this, and like they had a poor experience because their expectation was different. How do we modify this so that we can connect with more of those people? Because it's not just that person. There's a percentage of the population that thinks that way. Absolutely. And so it helps us get better at what we do, but ultimately it's helping us realize like, I don't want to work for everybody. Same thing with moving, like, hey, well, I found somebody cheaper. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Like, wonderful. That's awesome. If that is your motivation and your intention and you're planning around the cost, you should definitely go with that person.
Absolutely.
And so, like anything in business in the beginning, it wasn't like that. It was like, I'll do anything, please.
100%.
And so to get to a point where you're now at a place where you can say, let's choose to work with each other.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Absolutely.
And so same thing, adding a service like moving, like you need that ability, and know that like you're talking to someone. Chris isn't on his knees begging for your business. They're sustained in what they're doing, and they know what they're worth. So it's cool. Like if we're too expensive, like you said, there's other good people here. Yeah. They just don't deliver what I deliver. And so like the value exchange. And so giving people the ability to go and look at that, and like, people scratch their head with me all the time. I'll put direct competitors on this podcast with me sometimes, and chat about the differences. And, because again, my goal is for everyone to get their dream.
Absolutely.
And maybe I'm not the guy to build it for you, and that's okay. 100% okay.
Comes back to that abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's power in that, because I think once you build that aura around you, you align with the people that align with you. And that's what kind of makes us so successful. Like, we'll turn down jobs if we realize there might be a potential problem there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not worth it, because they're going to have a poor experience regardless. Yeah. If my standard can't deliver the experience that you want, it's not a fit.
Yeah.
And so that's okay.
100%.
And I've battled through years of being in situations where my standard wasn't good enough for someone, or my standard for communication was too overbearing for someone, to where now we're like, hey, look, we're going to help you plan. And when you walk away and you go find that person and you bring it back to the table, like, there's a piece of that where, like, if someone brings me a quote from another builder and they're like, well, they're a little bit cheaper than you, it tells me this. that you found enough value in me that you want to pick me. It's just an affordability thing.
Yep.
And I can't do nothing about that.
Yep.
And so you know that then it's the ball's in your court. You got to decide. Do you want the best or do you want good enough? And inside of that price range you're looking for, and that's your. And I'm rooting for you.
Absolutely.
Regardless, like I got people that we designed their home and they hired another builder to build it. Not a problem for me.
Yeah.
And I see them on Facebook and like, you know, there's a tendency there to be like, ha, look what we did, you know, and like in my mind, I'm like, I'm happy for you.
Absolutely.
I'm happy for you, man. Yeah. Like this is awesome. It's a big day for you. Like it does not affect me at all. Like the goal was for you to get what you were looking for. We do these barn burner things where like we take like hot button topics and stuff, and honestly, inside of our community, nobody's thinking about this. That's why I wanted to have you here, because I'm like, this is the perspective people need. But what are the bastards of moving, meaning items in a home? Like if someone's DIYing, like let's give some perspective on like what is the most complicated thing to do?
If you're DIYing, I think the most complicated thing to do, well, the thing it's not complicated, but it's very frustrating, is freaking IKEA furniture, because it just has a freaking bajillion bolts in it. You know, and you got to break it down because it's particle board, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to break in the truck anyways. But some really hard items.
Hold on, lean into that. So like, all right, you show up. I got 6 IKEA pieces of furniture, right? I got like a table, some bookshelves, a bed, and you know, one of them freaking Swedish wooden chair things. You know, like you have to disassemble that. What are the steps that your team does in that disassembly, like to keep everything organized?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we'll put all the hardware in a bag. We'll label the bag, and we'll tape it to the piece, not directly to the piece, but around the blanket on the outside. We'll wrap them all the pieces as we take them apart. We'll wrap them in blankets, and then on the other end, you know, we'll essentially unwrap everything and put it right back together.
That's good advice, though. Like, hey, if you're going to disassemble something, you better have a plan for what you're going to do with all those components, because when it came to you, it was in a box the size of this table.
And it had instructions then, but it probably doesn't now.
That's right.
And take pictures. So if you're DIY, and take pictures of things before you take them apart. That way you have something to reference back to when you put it back together if you forget.
Cool. What else? What else is the monsters of moving?
Any pianos upstairs. You know, pianos are pretty easy to get with a couple people if they're, you know, single story, going one floor to one floor. Same with safes. But once you start getting stuff that's upstairs, a good bit of stairs, and especially with tight turns, that's where it gets really, really difficult.
Let me ask you this: have you ever had any issues when you're moving pianos to where like the tuning, like, or is the homeowner kind of doing that themselves? Like when you move it, they get it.
Anytime you move a piano, regardless of who moves it, how they move it, you know, you want to let the key settle for a little while, maybe 2 weeks to a month, and then you get it retuned. You're going to always, no matter how you move pianos, you're always going to have to retune them. Even like these big orchestra concerts and stuff like that, you know, they're having to get people to come retune them as they move these pianos.
I bought my daughter a little antique baby grand. Yeah. And that's what she wanted. She's like, I want a real piano.
Oh yeah.
And so for her birthday, 3 years ago, 2 years, I don't even remember now, but we got one.
Nice.
And it was pristine. And the guy that had it, they were moving. He was like a music professor or something.
Yeah.
And he was relocating to Texas, and like he had like 4 of them. And he was like, I can't take this one.
Yeah.
And he was like heartbroken to sell it to me, but it was tuned perfectly, all this stuff. And then like his biggest concern was like, do you know how to care for this piano? Like, and it's like an obsession. And it was like, you know, it's got to be on an interior wall. Don't put it on the exterior wall of your home because the temperature changes and like all this stuff. And I'm like, get out of here, bro.
Yeah.
And I just remember it being a big deal. And he had a recommendation like, hey, there's a piano company that can move it for you. And kind of like they know what to do because it's older and it's got a million things. Like we lifted the thing up and I'm like,
it's wires everywhere.
But in moving it, it was in winter, and moving it from his home in the moving truck, the temperature change was enough to throw the tune out. And so like we had to like have them tune it once they set it up and everything like that. So that's a whole nother animal, man. I can't imagine, like, you know, but yeah.
But luckily we have vendors and stuff too that can help with the tuning on the process. So, you know,
plus they weigh 1,000 pounds. So.
Oh yeah, they're heavy, especially the baby grands and grands, or like the really old antique uprights. You know, you've seen the ones that are like that tall.
Yeah,
those are a pain.
Yeah, those are beast.
But yeah, other than that, you know, typical, you run into a lot of issues where maybe the item's not really that heavy, but it's awkward, right? Like you have to shift it a certain type of way. You ever seen that Seinfeld moving mean pivot, pivot. You run into situations like that all the time. But the best thing to do is just don't get frustrated. Take a step back, breathe, think through, because if it got in there, it can definitely get out.
Right.
You just got to take your time and think through it.
So let me ask you this in terms of, like equipping people, because here's the thing. We know 50% of people are going to do this themselves. Mm-hmm. And some people are like, this is unpacking for them all the thought process behind it to where they might go, I'm hiring that guy.
Yeah.
Equipment. So like, in your perspective of doing this every single day, like if you're going to DIY this and you're going to do it and you want to be, have the best outcome.
Yeah.
What kind of equipment, like in terms of like dollies versus, flat bottom dollies or, hand trucks or what do you think is they should be looking for?
Yeah. What I think we should be looking for is what we put in our trucks. So I'll just tell you what we put in our trucks.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we every truck comes with 100 blankets, 2 dollies, 2 regular 2-wheel dollies, 3 or 4 Chicago dollies. Those are the little flat 4-wheelers.
Yeah.
If there's a piano on the job, we'll bring a piano board. And then think about ratchet straps. That's what a lot of people really don't think about when they get like these U-Hauls, because we'll help load the U-Hauls as well, and we'll show up, and they won't have any straps to like tie in the back. You don't need many. Really, if you pack it appropriately and it's all the way from floor to ceiling, you can get away with just one on the back. Really, you can get away with none, but it's always good just to have that extra security. We keep 11 or 12 in all our trucks, and then shrink wrap, some packing tape. We use packing tape to save shrink wrap, so like dressers and stuff like that, we'll just put a blanket on it and tape around it, just as protected, just as safe, and a little less messy on the other end when we unwrap it as well.
Yep. Yeah, that's good because again, certain like what's an item that always got to be shrink wrapped?
An item that's always got to be shrink wrapped. I would say anything wood and anything leather are two of the very most important.
Yeah.
And you want to be careful with leather too. So leather, you want to make sure there's a blanket down too, because if you're moving during the summertime, depending on how long it's sitting on the back of the truck, that furniture is going to sweat, right? And if you just have shrink wrap on the furniture, so first of all, I tell everybody, shrink wrap does not protect your furniture.
That's right.
Just shrink wrap does not protect you. It does nothing. All it does is keep the drawers in. A blanket and shrink wrap is the way you always want to go for 2 reasons. Number one, that's how you protect your furniture. And then number 2, if you are moving during hot seasons and stuff like that and it's sitting on a truck for a little bit, it'll keep it from keep the furniture from sweating.
Right.
Which is where it just builds up moisture and condensation inside the shrink wrap and then takes off the patina on your furniture.
Right. That's good. That's good advice, man. Again, I try to equip people, man. Like they're especially in the Barndo industry, there's a ton of DIY in Barndo.
Yeah.
Like I've had some guys in here, man. Like Mike Moom, he's the pole barn guru. Their whole business is designing homes, building the kit of all the materials needed, and then they just deliver it on site.
Yeah.
And they give you an instruction manual with 900 pages. Yeah. And they're like, good luck.
See you in a couple years.
Yeah. And so, there's a big piece of DIY in the industry we're in.
Yeah.
So a lot of these people, man, that's going to be good advice for them as they're thinking about it. But, the majority of people, like if they're in a position where they want a Barndo and they're hiring a contractor to build it, there's a reason there, right? Like, hey, we want it done right. We want it done time effectively. And I've got better things to do with my time than go and figure out how to build a freaking house.
Absolutely.
And the same thing's true with moving, man. But I appreciate you coming and kicking it with me, man.
100%.
And, you and I, it was like the first podcast I ever did was me and you, man. And
100%.
So it's fun to get back on here and hang out and talk about that. But if you're in the area, pretty much if you're in an area where we build, you're within service area of what they provide.
Yeah.
If you're in some of the outskirts areas, because we're now covering, 2 states almost in their entirety between North Carolina, South Carolina, and then all of Eastern Tennessee. it still, I would reach out and get pricing from these guys because you guys provide such an amazing service. So
absolutely.
Yeah. What's your website?
Yeah, so our website is swamprabbitmoving.com. And then I want to add too, even if you're a DIYer and you run into a situation that maybe we didn't answer on this podcast, just give us a call. We'll gladly give you any answers you need, whether you're looking to use us or not. Like, we're just here to be a resource. We want to make sure that everybody has a successful move. It has nothing to do. I'm not a transactional guy. If you need help, we'll give you help or give you some pointers or tips.
That's why you're the best in the business, man. Thanks for coming on the show, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.